Hey guys, thanks for joining us this morning. Can you guys hear me and see the PowerPoint okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So today's training, we're going to be reviewing target behaviors, and we're also going to be talking about writing treatment goals. So this is the area at the end of the FBA when we're going to develop our target behaviors under the FBA results section. It's kind of what we're going to hit upon in this training, and then how to develop the treatment goals or the program goals that we're going to be putting in the plan. And if you remember, the program goals are the goals that belong at the start of each box. Every box in your treatment plan is going to have a different goal with its own antecedents and consequence strategies. And there's a certain way that we write them, and we're going to be reviewing that in this training. So please take notes. This video will also be posted to YouTube for your reference moving forward. So let's get right into it. So what is a behavior? We talk a lot about behaviors, and what is a behavior? Well, a behavior is an observable, measurable action by an organism. So sometimes I see people write something that isn't observable, something that isn't measurable. We want to make sure our definitions are could be counted, could be measured, and something that we can observe ourselves. And there's a few different ways that we can record behavior that's for a different training. Maybe we'll do that one next week. But remember that behaviors must be biological in nature. They're not, corporations can't have behaviors. Inanimate objects like chairs or tables can't have behaviors. Only organisms, only things that are alive could have behaviors. Behaviors must involve movement, so activity, interaction with the environment. So sometimes I see people not having a behavior or refraining from a behavior is listed as a target behavior. And we want to steer clear of that idea because if not having a behavior fails our test of involving movement and action, but also how do you work with someone not having a behavior? How do you reinforce the absence of behaviors? How do we do our work or use our tool of reinforcement if someone's refraining from having behaviors? So those are some of the criteria about behavior that we want to keep in mind when we're developing our treatments, our target behaviors in our treatment plan. We want to write an operational definition that anyone can easily identify the behavior. And you guys will hear me in supervision when you guys meet with me talking about your treatment plans, and I see some of the definitions, and I ask myself if I could pull somebody off the street, would they be able to rely to read your plan and reliably record upon the behaviors? And that answer should be yes. So we want to use clear, complete, objective language. We want to take the subjective out of it. We want to write it as simply, like I said, that a stranger off the street could read our plan and reliably record upon the behaviors. That's how simply we should write it. Detail exactly what the behavior looks like. So a lot of times I may see in a plan like a target behavior listed as um, a target behavior listed as like social appropriateness. And then I see in the definition, well, greeting someone, shaking their hand. And I tell you guys, I'm like, write that as the target behavior, shaking hand, or instead of writing like an appropriate greeting, I want to delve in and find exactly what that behavior looks like, exactly what we're trying to accomplish with this behavior. So we want to detail exactly what it's like. Oh, I apologize. We want to be objective. We don't want to leave anything to assumption, judgment, or feelings. And sometimes when I'm doing my FBA, I might hear terms as lazy or unmotivated and those kind of terms. I want to delve in and ask those questions. What does that look like? What does lazy look like to this person so that we can get right to the meat, right to the target behaviors that we need to be working on? And you might hear the word response a lot in our work. And a response is just a single instance of behavior. So a lot of times we might use response in place of the word behavior. And as always, we're always thinking of that dead man's test. And the dead man's test for the new people is just a test that we kind of think about when we're writing target behaviors and operational definitions. And if a dead person can do the behavior, it is not a behavior. So can someone give me an example of what might a behavior quote unquote that might fail this dead man's test?
Not breathing,
Not
not,
breathing.
yeah, not moving.
Yeah, I mean that would be a pretty serious one.
Yeah.
Like lying down, maybe laying on the floor. Right, so these
Nope.
kind of failed the dead man's test, and we want to steer clear of writing those kind of target behaviors in our treatment plan. So there's three characteristics that we want to consider when we're writing a good target behavior definition. So after we kind of identify the behavior we're going to be working on, we are going to consider these three characteristics of a good target behavior. And this is from Hawkins and Dobbs, 1977. So a long way back now. And we want to make sure we're objective, referring only to the observable characteristics of the behavior, staying away from words such as intended to help, showing interest in, into much more objective ones. We want to be clear that it should be readable and unambiguous so that experienced observers could read it and readily paraphrase it accurately. And then finally, we want to be complete. We want to delineate the boundaries of what is to be included as an instance of a response and what is to be excluded. And if you guys worked on a treatment plan in that target behavior section, there is a section right under the target behavior that hits upon this complete portion of this, which is an example and a non-example of the behavior. And I see some people get tripped up on that, especially with the non-example. And we had a target behavior of verbal aggression that we were working on yesterday in someone's plan. And the example would be like screaming curses, which was like, okay, like the example is pretty hit home there. And then the non-example, well, you know, it was kind of we were kicking around some ideas, but we came up with like cheering at a ball game. So it's kind of similar to the target behavior, but not something that we would record upon. So that example and non-example, for your non-example, you just want to write something that's similar to the target behavior, but something that we wouldn't record upon if we saw an instance of it. Does anyone have any questions about any of these three? Okay, so this is an elopement definition. An elopement is defined as any instance in which the individual leaves a designated area of supervision without permission and does not respond to redirection within 10 seconds. This includes walking, running, or otherwise moving more than 5 feet away from an assigned space in a manner that compromises safety or supervision. Okay, pretty well detailed, and I feel like we would be able to readily record upon it so it passes that test. And here's the example: exiting a therapy room and running down the hallway without permission. So that would be an instance where we do record upon this behavior. And then we have a non-example, like walking 2 or 3 feet away from the table during a break, but remaining in the room and supervision. So that could be an instance where someone would say, hey, this might be elopement here. But since we kind of had a complete definition showing an example and a similar non-example, this person even can record even more reliably upon this behavior. Does anyone have any questions about any part of this? Okay. So finally, we want to test our behavior definitions. And you know, when I'm reviewing your target behaviors that you develop, this is the test I'm thinking about. These are the tests that I'm thinking about, or the questions I'm thinking about when I'm going through your treatment plans. And these are the things I'm going to talk to you guys about. So Morris in 1985 suggests testing definitions of target behaviors by asking these three questions. Number one, can you count the number of times that the behavior occurs in? And your answer should be yes, that we should be able to count how many times this behavior occurs. Morris also suggests, will a stranger know, and this is what I always think about and I tell you guys about, will a stranger know exactly what to look for when you tell him the target behavior and the definition you're planning to modify? And your answer should be yes, that's how simply you wrote it. That's how clear you wrote it, that if a stranger came in, they could read it and they could reliably record upon it. And you heard me say that even earlier in the training. And then finally, can you break the target behavior into smaller behavioral components? So this is the idea where I might see socially appropriate behavior, and then I see it as in the definition, handshakes, greetings, and like maybe we should choose those behaviors, greetings or handshakes, over that target behavior of socially appropriate behavior. Because yes, we could break these behaviors down into smaller behavior components. So our answer should be no for this one, that we shouldn't be able to break this behavior or the definition into smaller behavioral components. So these are the three things that I'm thinking about when I'm reviewing target behaviors or if I'm writing them myself. And these are the three things that you guys should consider as well. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. So we're going to move right on to the next section of our training, which is using treatment goals. So again, in the behavior support plan, in the very first section, every single box has to start off with the treatment goal. And this treatment goal is, and please follow, review our FBA training because we need to make sure we have a good baseline to be able to develop this treatment goal because we want to make this goal a little bit better than what we determined to be happening right now during the baseline phase. So using treatment goals, it specifies goals for treatment. So it specifies exactly what we're going to be working on and also gives strategies that we are going to be implementing. Oops. It's going to specify goals for treatment, what we are working on. It's going to first, we want the criteria for this is the setting on where the goal will be practiced. So the way we write this as many times is while at the program, while in the community, or across all settings. It outlines what data collection to use by saying Tommy will engage in 0 instances of verbal aggression, perhaps. So that 0 instances tells us that we should be doing choosing what kind of data recording method. What was that? Hmm. Frequency. Thank you. And outlines what prompt level is required. So we may write independent with verbal prompt, with modeling prompt. And outlines the performance criteria needed for mastery, or exactly how many times we would want to see a behavior before we consider revamping this goal or discontinuing this goal. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So there's 4 categories of goals that we need to be concerned with. These are the 4 areas that we're going to help a VIP. And of course, the first ones are going to be the maladaptive behavior goals, decreasing or eliminating maladaptive behaviors that interfere with daily life, relationships, or learning. And many times, like 9 times out of 10, we're going to get a referral due to a maladaptive behavior. So this VIP is engaging in a maladaptive behavior, maybe to meet a need usually. And that, so the behavior is being led to reinforcement. And we're going to come in, identify this as a goal to reduce for treatment while teaching another goal in its place, or another skill or another behavior in its place. The second category of goal that we work on is communication and language goals, increasing functional communication skills, including verbal, augmented, or alternative forms. So making sure someone can command or make requests or label, task, that they can receive receptive communication and follow directions, right? It's super important for safety skills. So these are communication and language goals that we would choose to work on if our VIPs in need of them. Social play goals is another realm that we would delve into with our VIPs and promoting social interactions, reciprocal play, or leisure engagement to support social inclusion and relationship building. So we see goals like this interacting with peers, attending social groups or clubs like our RBL social club that we have. So all of these could be ways that we could choose goals to help build a better quality of life for our VIPs. And then finally, our functional goals, which support daily living and adaptive skills to improve independence and quality of life. These can include safety skills like crossing the street. This could include budgeting goals. This could include goals for hygiene. So these are just four areas that I'm thinking about with when I'm working with my VIPs, especially during the FBA process, to kind of identify and to work on to help lead my VIPs to a better quality of life by accessing more reinforcement and more independence. Does anyone have any questions about these categories or anything I missed? Okay. So here's an example of a maladaptive behavior goal that we wrote. So what we're going to do is we're going to review this goal, and then we're going to look at a graph. And many of you guys seen this before. We're going to look at the graph, and we're going to see if Thomas, in this case, met that goal. So this is the goal that would belongs in our behavior support plan. So through our FBA process and through our baseline collection, we determined that Thomas is eloping. And what we've seen that he elopes 8 times per session during our baseline collection. So we came up and it's happening. We're collecting on this baseline period. So we determined that this goal would be a great goal to put in our behavior support plan. And the way we would write this is in all situations. So across the board, we want to make sure and this specifies where the goal is going to be worked on and where the data collection is going to be happening. So we're going to be recording on elopement across the board, no matter where Thomas goes. In all situations, Thomas will independently, so this is without any help from us, any prompting, reduce elopement behaviors to no more than 5 instances per session across 5 consecutive sessions. And if you remember during baseline, I think I said it happened 7 or 8 times. So we think if we could get this behavior down to 5 times per session, that we're going to be making progress and Thomas will be able to meet this goal so that maybe we can make this goal a little bit more difficult and slowly move towards zeroing this behavior out. So we have where the goal will be worked on, the prompt level in red, the behavior of interest, reduce elopement behaviors, and then the data collection method and performance criteria, no more than 5 instances per session across 5 consecutive sessions. And guys, most of the time when we are working on maladaptive behaviors, we want to make sure that, and it's not all the time, but 9 times out of 10, we're going to choose a frequency recording for this. We're going to do a count to how much this is happening. Okay. And we're going to use our baseline information and make this goal a little bit better than what's currently happening now. Does anyone have any questions about any of those ideas or anything to add? Okay, so let's see if Thomas met his goal. Here's the graph. So during session, I'm going to look at my program goal. I'm going to open Central Reach Up and I'm going to determine if Thomas has met this goal or not. And no more than 5 instances per session across 5 consecutive sessions. So I'm not sure if you guys could see the graph in great detail, but did Thomas meet his goal?
No.
And why do we think no?
Because he
Because,
didn't have 5 consecutive sessions.
yes, that's right. So these are fives. I believe that it'd be good if I put the data number in there. This actually looks like a 4. So if we have 0 on one day, 2 on another day, 1 on another day, and then 4 and 4, would he met his goal?
Yeah.
Yes. So I think he did. I think this is a little misleading. It looks like it's a 5, but I think it might be a 4. If it was a 5, it would be no, but clearly he did meet his goal. So what can we do now? We see that Thomas met his goal. He met the criteria that we outlined in his goal. So what could we do? What should we do for Thomas?
Make it more challenging.
We can make it more challenging. And what could we do?
Make the incidents less than 5, like make it no more than 3 incidents.
I think that would be a great approach here, that we don't make this more than, I think we change this number to be 3 maybe. So we're slowly moving it back, and we're going to see over time if Thomas could continue his progress and meet this goal of 3 that we're going to change it to. Okay, any questions? So guys, think of this, and we call this in ABA a visual analysis. And what we're doing is a lot of times people, when they see that we use graphs a lot, they think, oh, we use statistics or we have all this crazy mathematical stuff going on. And no, we do not. All we're looking is to see if the behaviors are trending in the right direction, if they're going down or if they're going up or staying the same. And that's called our visual analysis, that we're just looking and we're going to make determinations and treatment decisions based on the data and what is happening. So let's move on. So here's a communication language goal that we developed, and we have Sandy that we're working with. And we see that Sandy is having trouble asking for help or break and engaging in challenging behaviors in order to get a help or break. So we decide that Sandy can speak, and we're going to help teach her to ask for a help and break or break. And we're going to lead that to reinforcement by delivering that break. So we have While at the Day program, which is where we're going to work on this goal. Sandy with one verbal prompt. So we're going to be able to give her a prompt. Ask for a help or break in 80% of presented opportunities across 5 consecutive sessions. So in this case, we are going to capture and create opportunities for Sandy to ask for a break. We're also going to be able to give her a prompt to remind her, don't forget a break's available, Sandy. And we're going to encourage her to use it that way. And we're going to mark a yes on our data sheet if she followed through and asked for a help or break. And we're going to mark a no on our data sheet if she does not ask for a help or break and maybe engages in that challenging behavior again. So this is our goal. Let's look at our graph. But first of all, does anyone have any questions about this goal? And guys, for skill acquisition behaviors, 9 times out of 10, we're going to use this percent correct or percent of opportunities. And the way I like to think about it is we're going to create opportunities and capture opportunities to work on this behavior. And we're going to kind of create a trial, or we're going to capture a trial in time and work on this behavior. Okay, so many times with skill acquisition behaviors, we want to use this percent correct in central reach, and that's going to be our data recording method. So let's see how Sandy did. Excuse me. So did Sandy meet her goal?
No,
Why didn't she meet her goal?
because she didn't have 80% across 5 consecutive sessions.
That's right. So she did not meet her goal. And if this was going on for a while and we see that Sandy did not meet her goal, what might we consider? What should we consider?
Drop the 80% down lower.
Okay, that could be one option, that we make the goal easier to accomplish. We put this down to 60%. If we're thinking about the being effective, which is one of the 7 dimensions of ABA, being effective, what might we also consider here?
Increasing the prompt level.
Okay, good idea. We might increase the prompt level. We might choose to use a more intrusive prompt for Sandy, which maybe is using a card or something like that to help remind her. What else might I consider if I'm not being effective in meeting my goal? And
I would lower the number of consecutive sessions.
Okay, you might consider lowering the amount of consecutive sessions, or even have non-consecutive sessions, which is another option here. But a change we might consider that's not so overt in this slide would be what?
Changing the replacement behavior. Like right now, the replacement behavior is asking for help or break. That may be too challenging for her. So
Okay, yeah,
finding a different way for her to get that without having to verbally communicate it.
yeah, good idea. So yeah, we could consider that the replacement behavior we chose is too effortful for Sandy, that we want, and we may want to choose a different communication method or style for Sandy, to ask for this help or break to make it as effortless as possible. So I like that idea as well. And what else finally would we consider changing that's not overt here on this slide?
Not.
What might we change?
The environment,
Okay, the environment, yes, or R starts with an I. R, what goes into be?
Intervention.
Yeah, our interventions, right? So we're gonna consider, hey, maybe our interventions need to be updated. Maybe I need to sit down with the BCBA and review some of my interventions, and make sure that I'm being effective in my work. And I realize this is only like 8 or 9 days. We might give it a little bit more of a chance. But guys, think about that. That if you're not being effective in your work and your graphs aren't showing the progress, that effective progress that we require, it's time to reevaluate your plan. It's time to reevaluate what you're doing and what you're working on, so that we can make that progress again. Okay, so Sandy will continue with this goal, and we hope she will achieve greatness upcoming. So here's an example of a social play goal. And this social play goal is about sitting in a group setting. So in this case, we have while at the day program, we have Freddie will sit in a group using model prompts for at least 5 minutes in 90%. So even though we do record a duration here, we're still considering that a percentage presented opportunity. So in 90% of presented opportunities across 5 consecutive sessions. Okay, so that's what we identified for Freddie, that through interviews and talking with the family and working with Freddie, we determined that this was an important goal to work on. So after implementing this goal, we recorded upon Freddie's progress, and we're going to see how well he did. Okay, so here is Freddie's graph, and did he meet the criteria for mastery?
no.
No. So Freddie didn't meet the criteria because I don't think any occasion where Freddie meets that 90% threshold. So we're going to consider the same things. Do we need to make this goal easier? Do we need to make the behavior, less time? We might say for 3 minutes instead of 5 minutes. And we're also going to look at our interventions to make sure that our interventions are working to be effective for Freddie. And again, this isn't a long time. So maybe we give it a little bit longer before we consider revamping our plan, but something to keep an eye on and something to look at with your work when you're working with the VIP. And finally, we have a functional goal. And while at the house, Samsonite will dress himself after toileting with only one verbal prompt in 80% of presented opportunities across 5 consecutive sessions. Okay. So this is Samsonite. We'll see how he's doing with this goal. So this is addressing himself. Did he meet the criteria for mastery?
Yes.
Yes, he did. So very good, Samsonite. You can really do a good job dressing yourself. So what might we consider now as BSCs and BCBAs? What would be considered to do now that Samsonite has met his goal?
Take away the verbal prompts.
You can make this goal more difficult by taking away the verbal prompts and changing it to what?
Independently.
Independently, right? You can also do what?
At a higher percentage.
You can make it a higher percentage, which I might recommend in this case because we would want Samsonite to be able to be independent with this. Wouldn't want to just accept 80% of the time, but we'd want him to do this 100% of the time. So I would encourage you guys to continue to work on this and update this program goal to be a little bit more difficult, teach a little bit more independence for Samsonite. And what's another consideration that we might make, and maybe not about this goal, but if we see someone has mastered a goal, what might we consider doing?
Discontinuing it.
Discontinuing it. Why record on something that's been working for weeks and months? We should get rid of it. We should stop putting effortful, and we could still record it if we're like, hey, this behavior could come back. I'm going to put this on maintenance, and I'm going to continue to record to make sure that we don't aren't trending in the wrong direction. But I could discontinue this as well for my treatment plan. And a lot of times when I look at your graphs, sometimes what I see is someone has mastered a goal. It's like every day 100%. So it's like we need to make sure we're making these changes or discontinuing the goal, that this person achieved mastery and they do not need us to continue to record upon the behavior. So guys, make sure during sessions that you guys are evaluating your data collection, that you're looking to see if they met the criteria or not. And when you use Central Reach, and I'm going to show you some things on Central Reach in a minute. I'll show you kind of how to make this an easier process for you. Okay, so so we talked about reviewing goal status. Use the graph to help determine if mastery criteria is being met. If a goal is met, mark the goal as mastered or make the goal more difficult, like we talked about. If a goal is not making progress after a set period of time, look at the interventions and review with the BCBA. And then any questions about this, anything we reviewed right now? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to bring up Central Reach. And we're going to take a look at some things in Central Reach. Can you guys see my Central Reach okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring up our fake VIP. Okay, and the first thing I'm going to show you is actually how to access the treatment plan while I'm here. So I'm going to make sure I'm under the client's profile. And I'm going to go to Profile, Notes and Forms, and I'm going to add New. And here I'm going to search BSP. And you'll see the adult FBA BSP. The full plan and the brief plan, and we reviewed kind of the brief plan at the last staff meeting. And I'm just going to bring this up to show you guys what sections I was referencing before. So we have this FBA results section, and this FBA results section is where you're going to be putting the target behavior and operational definitions. And here we have the examples, non-examples, and we have our baseline information, frequency, intensity, duration, and then finally the hypothesized function for the challenging behaviors. And remember, guys, this FBA results section is just for challenging behaviors. So we want to make sure that we write the target behavior and definition here, examples, non-examples, frequency, intensity, duration, and function. And this is after we've completed the rest of the FBA process, the indirect and direct assessment information. And now, and you know, I met with a BSC, and through your supervisions, you guys teach me what you guys need to keep learning about. And what we've talked about is, oh, during the indirect assessment, during our interviews, there was a lot of target behaviors identified. But when we started our direct observation, when we went out and looked at the behaviors ourselves, we determined that those behaviors are not currently happening, that these are historic behaviors that haven't occurred in some time. So what should we do with those behaviors? They were reported in the indirect, but now they are not happening. So what should we do?
I mean, you might be able to like keep an eye out for them, but to actually put them, if you didn't see them yourself, they shouldn't really be in the plan.
Exactly right. If even though they were reported upon, and think about how unreliable the indirect assessment is, we should not be putting them in our behavior support plan because they are not currently a problem. And you know, writing these is could be effortful. So it's like, why are we doing extra work if the behavior is not happening now? And a lot of times this FBA process goes on for a month, and we may not see any instances of the behaviors that were reported in the indirect information. And I think it's a good idea to keep an eye out for it. I'm going to ask if this behavior happens to record it on an ABC form, but I'm not going to actively develop it into my FBA results section. I'm going to not choose that behavior as a behavior I'm going to put in this section. That I'm only going to put behaviors that are actively happening, that I've determined are a behavior, a problem behavior that's being led to reinforcement, or that we continue to see again and again and again. So guys, that's this FBA results section. Does anyone have anything to add here or any questions about this particular section?
I have a question for you, Mike.
Please.
So for the direct, what does it say? Summary of direct client observation. So home, community, and program. So if I'm only giving services at program, the home and community wouldn't be necessary.
Right. So
Okay.
for your direct observations, after you've done your indirect assessment information, you're going to go and take and think of the indirect as, and we're back to the FBA, but it's so important.
Right.
Think of the indirect as like kind of, I'm gathering all this broad information, but it's also really unreliable. But at least it gives me a lens to go out when I do my direct observations. It gives me something to look at and think about while I'm working with that VIP and watch out for, so I could be ready to record upon it if it were to happen. And also, I'm going to give ABC data sheets so that the people that work with them while I'm not there can collect on this information, because we want to determine the function and also gather this baseline information about how things are happening now. And as Brandon said, if someone is just a day program client, we don't need to do an observation in the home or community. We just need to do one observation per area that we're servicing them. And I do a half hour to an hour observation, and you could do more than one observation. You could do multiple observations, and that's probably a better approach than just doing one. And you're going to develop this information. I like to fill out a lot of this information, while I'm on doing my assessments. As I'm asking questions, I'm filling in all these sections, and I am developing this plan while I'm on session. Any other questions about this part of the treatment plan of the FBA? Okay, and the hypothesized function at the end. So now after we identified some challenging behaviors, we identified these behavior reduction goals. Here is where you want to list your program goal. So this, and I see a lot of people here, they're putting in target behaviors and definitions. You don't need any of that. So this section is simply going to be the goal that we reviewed in all settings. Tommy will what? Engage in property destruction 3 times, because we determined he does it 5 times maybe during baseline, during session with verbal encouragement across 5 consecutive weeks. So that's all that belongs in this section.
And also, Mike, that's for like a behavior reduction goal, right? Not like a skill acquisition one.
Yeah, so exactly right. So this is for behavior reduction goals in this section. And as you scroll down, you'll see the headings here are the categories we reviewed earlier: communication, social play, and functional goals. And if I have 3 target behaviors identified up here, 3 challenging behaviors, I need 3 boxes here. So I'm simply going to take this box, copy it, and paste it down here. And here, I'm just going to change my target behavior. So maybe we have what? Elopement. And I'm going to change this to elopement. And now I have another goal that has its own antecedents and consequence strategies. Goal status is a great box to paste your graph. And I like to show that this person met it. So I could copy my graph from CentralReach and paste it right in this section. And when I do that, I could write like goal mastered on 1/28/26, goal will be updated. And then I could come right up here and just update the goal to 3. And then continue with the strategies. And I'm making a little bit of a note here about my progress with the VIP. I can also write what? If the goal was in progress, goal did not make significant or make progress. Interventions will be evaluated 1, 28, 26, or something like that. And I could paste the graph in here to show exactly what I'm seeing with my graph. And that's a great approach to treatment. And he's using these goals and your graph to evaluate your progress and your VIP's progress over time. Does anyone have any questions about this?
Maybe I could add one thing for like
Please.
because I used to make this mistake all the time, and Mike, you would like correct me. So for the first like that behavior reduction, those antecedent consequence strategies are more or less like not like skill acquisition ones, but more generic and like for the consequence, like stay safe, like maintain a safe distance. And they could potentially be the same as the next one too. If there's more than one behavior reduction goal. Does that sound correct?
Yes, exactly right. So,
Okay.
and what I like to think about, this is the question I'm thinking about. I say, what are the antecedents for the property destruction behavior? So, what are we going to do to make the property destruction behavior occur less often? As the consequence strategies, I'm going to write, okay, if we see an instance of property destruction, what are we going to do? What are we going to do to respond? So if you keep those questions in your mind when you're going through the antecedents and consequences, it really helps to clear up exactly what strategy should be in each section. And think about a skill acquisition behavior. Maybe we have manding down here, and I'm not going to write out a whole goal, but I have manding down here. So I'm going to say, what are some antecedent strategies that would help evoke or cause the manding behavior to happen? What are the consequence strategies for the manding behavior that we would want to implement if we see a mand? Does that make sense? Is that helpful?
Yeah, thank you for clarifying.
No problem. Does anyone else have anything to add or any questions here? So we sign the bottom here, and a lot of people have told me when they sign the bottom, it locks the note. So and you could assign it to me. And when you assign it to me, this is like, Mike, I want you to review the plan. You could type in my name and I'm right there. And this would come, and it's having me sign because I'm the person I just assigned it to. But you could assign it to me and I could take a look at it, and give you feedback about your plan. But if you do sign it and you're like, oh man, I want to go in and make some changes. And I'll save this. And what you could do here is in your notes and forms section, you're going to see it. And this is the file I just made. You could scroll over here to copy note. And when you do that, it's going to make an exact replica of that note without any signatures. And you'll see there's the work we did, and it won't include any signatures. So you're free to kind of update the new document. Did you guys see how I did that?
Yeah, I never knew you could do that.
That's what I want to review with you. Yeah, I just learned it too.
Nice.
Because there's like, oh, like how do you copy and paste something
Yeah.
that's already signed? So that's that. Any questions about this portion? And we're just going to review one more thing. Okay. We're going to go to clinical learning trees, and I'm going to bring up my VIP, my fake VIP, and bring up his learning tree. So you might be, it might be like a little bit cumbersome to go back and forth. You could have the plan open with the program goal, and you can be going back and forth and comparing it with the graph. Another good thing you could do is literally down over here, you could select the goal and you could put the mastery criteria, the antecedents here in this section. And when you're reviewing the graphs, I would have the graph right here and I could see the mastery criteria or program goal, we should say, program goal right here. And I could look at my graph as I kind of have it open on one screen. Might make it easier to evaluate the VIP's progress. And also, if I do update this, if I go into session, if I have a session, man. If I go into session and I'm on session reviewing, I could click this and you'll see that information is going to appear right here. So there's my graph for washing hands and for verbal aggression. And you could see there's the information I included in the branch description. So if you put your program goal right here, you can easily make those comparisons by looking at the graph above. And this is in sessions. Does anyone have any questions about anything we reviewed? Anything to add? Okay, well, I hope you guys learned something today. If you guys have any questions, I'm going to post this video to YouTube. You could watch it again. If you have anything to add or ask, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for joining.
Have a great
Thanks, Mike.
day.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike.
Thank you guys. Take care.
See ya.